Unlocking modality. Mastering. Should, ought to, and had better. Hello everyone. Today we're going to delve into the realm of English modal verbs for giving advice. We'll be focusing specifically on should, ought to, and had better. By the end of this session, you'll be comfortable using these in real-life scenarios and role plays. So, let's get started. Let's begin with a quick recap. These three modal verbs are often used to give advice. Should is the most common and general way to give advice. For instance, you should study for the exam. Ought to has a similar meaning to should, but is less common and a bit more formal. For example, you ought to respect your elders. Had better is a stronger form of advice, often implying a warning or threat of negative consequences. For instance, you had better stop smoking. Now, let's dive into some role-playing scenarios to practice using these modal verbs. Scenario 1. Doctor-patient interaction. Imagine you're a doctor advising a patient. Doctor, you should drink lots of fluids and rest. Doctor, you ought to avoid heavy meals for a few days. Doctor, you had better not skip your medication. It's crucial for your recovery. Scenario 2. Teacher-student interaction. Suppose you're a teacher advising a student. Teacher, you should focus more on your math assignments. Teacher, you ought to read this book. It'll enhance your understanding of the subject. Teacher, you had better submit your project on time to avoid losing marks. Let's move on to some more real-life examples. Try using should, ought to, and had better in these contexts. Scenario 1. Giving a friend advice. Imagine you're advising a friend who's feeling unwell. You should see a doctor if the symptoms persist. You ought to rest instead of going to work today. You had better inform your office that you're sick. Scenario 2. Talking to a colleague. Suppose you're talking to a colleague who's behind schedule on a project. You should plan your tasks well to meet the deadline. You ought to seek help if you're unable to manage alone. You had better prioritize your tasks or you might miss the deadline. And that brings us to the end of today's session. Remember, the more you use should, ought to, and had better in your everyday English, the more natural they'll feel. Practice is key here. Feel free to revisit this video whenever you need a refresher. Thanks for watching, and keep practicing.